Hi everyone, I'm Matt from Look Into Bitcoin, and today we're going to be doing a Bitcoin Roundup to discuss the current market conditions. We're going to try and gain some insight into Bitcoin's recent price action and how we should consider positioning ourselves going forward. To do this, we'll be using a number of resources that are all freely available on lookintobitcoin.com, your number one source for Bitcoin information. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. So right now we're just on the Bitcoin price live page here on lookintobitcoin.com, and as we can see, April, just as we're about to close this month, has been somewhat neutral, fairly choppy, volatile, sideways. It's not been anything spectacular, but it's certainly not been anything too negative. We are actually up for the month about 4%, although this might change just a tad by the time you actually see this. But as we can see, we've had a lot of sideways, pump to the upside, another dump, some sideways, and now just some volatile chop to finish off the month. Pretty much sideways from where we started. So overall, not too bad, not great, but realistically nothing to complain about. So how can we actually gain a little bit more insight into this and see maybe what's upcoming over the next few weeks and months? Because so far the start of this year has been pretty good, to be honest. If we just look at the year so far, we can see that, well, starting from 2023, where Bitcoin started at just over $16,000, we're now over $29,000 as I film this, approaching $30,000. So certainly a great start to the year, but is this trend going to continue, or are we maybe going to have a bit more sideways, a bit more chop, or potentially even some drawdown? We're going to try and have a look, try and get some hints and clues to where we could potentially go. So first thing, if we just go to the Fear and Greed Index, we can see we've actually had a very sustained long period of greed in the market. So sentiment has definitely shifted from where it was for pretty much all of 2022. And if we just zoom in a little bit here, especially off the lows from, as we said, around $16,000, as soon as we broke above sort of $20,000, we got into this neutral sentiment range here. We did have a slight retracement, which brought us back down, but ever since we've been above sort of the $26,000, $27,000 region, we've had these scores of 60 plus on the Fear and Greed Index, which do indicate that we're currently at a greedy sentiment in the market. So is this greedy sentiment justified? Well, I suppose, as we said, we have had a very good start to the year, and especially if you're into trading and investing in altcoins, there's definitely been a lot of opportunity in that space because there's a lot of cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin. But recently, especially over the past few weeks and couple months really, we haven't really done anything too noteworthy. As I said, we've just had this sideways chop for, well, a lot of March and April now too. So really, is this the time to be greedy, or is this the time to maybe be a bit more neutral? Potentially this will come down a little bit, but as we said, we're currently in the greedy area on the Fear and Greed Index, which historically it's not the best area to be in. Typically we want to be contrarian to the general market. So if we just zoom out here, we can see obviously we're not too overextended on this score, but as soon as we start getting very high, very greedy market conditions, it usually indicates that a market top may be coming. Now, of course, we can stay greedy for an extended period of time, a very long period, such as in 2019 here, where we came off the bear market lows, very similar to what we did here actually, and we saw this sustained move to the upside from just above $3,000 all the way up to about $14,000, $13,000. And even though we did have periods of sideways consolidation with quite greedy sentiment, we never really actually got a sustained pullback. So this may actually be a little bit of bullish optimism for the current conditions, because as we said, this pattern does look somewhat similar to what we saw here in 2019. So we have had a little bit of retracement here, but it was very short-lived. And now again, we're down maybe a couple percent from the highs we set a few weeks ago, but definitely nothing major, especially within cryptocurrency. A couple percent is definitely nothing to write home about. So maybe we just continue this to the upside. Maybe there's considerable more room for greed in the current market sentiment. But let's have a look at a few other things to see potentially if that's the most likely outcome, or if maybe there's something else that we need to pay attention to. So here, if we just look at the 200 weekly moving average heat map, we can see we have actually regained this 200 weekly moving average. Now, this is just the average closing price of the previous 200 weeks of price action. And once we actually overlay that on the chart, we can see it's been a very significant line for Bitcoin throughout all of its history. It's usually the bottom price support for Bitcoin's bear cycles, but in this bear cycle, we did dip fairly substantially beneath it for a very sustained period of time. But as we can see, we've jumped above this 200 weekly moving average, which currently sits at around $25,000, nearly $26,000. And we haven't actually been back down to retest this, which may be something that a lot of people are looking towards as a really great area of support where a lot of buy pressure is going to come in. A lot of people are probably waiting for this area as potentially a point of value to maybe pick up some cheaper Bitcoin, especially if we temporarily dip beneath this. But throughout all of Bitcoin's bear cycles, like we said, this has been an area of support. And even after we've touched this line in previous Bitcoin bear markets, we always retested it. We always came back bounced off it a number of times before really kicking off the next bull cycle. We can see here in 2015 and here in 2018, 2019. It's a very similar story in both. And we haven't actually come down and retested that yet. So maybe a lot of people are a bit too tentative to buy more or expect higher prices. Maybe if we need to come down and retest the 200 weekly moving average before people can get really confident that the next bull cycle has started. Because as we said, this is usually a good indication of how healthy the market is, especially when this really starts trending up and we start to separate away from this 200 weekly moving average. What we can also look at is the golden ratio multiplier. And as we can see here, this is just taking into account the yearly moving average, well, the 350-day, nearly 1 year moving average of Bitcoin, and then multiplying that by a number of Fibonacci numbers in accordance to the Fibonacci sequence. If you need any more information, we have done a video or just beneath this chart on looking to Bitcoin, you can get a little bit more clarification on the calculations. But as we can see here, we've come above this 350-day moving average, which every time we've come above this usually indicates that the bear cycle is over and we're in this at least transitionary period between bear cycles and bull cycles. But we can see we usually have a little bit of resistance whenever we come to these upper bands, such as the green band, which is the 1.6 multiple of the 350-day, or this red band, which is the 2 times multiple. In every single transitionary period, once we've come out of the bear market, we've broken above this 350-day, found a little bit of resistance in each time, maybe pulled back a little bit in price before some sideways before we actually broke higher. And this currently sits, this green nearest multiple to us, at around $35,500, and this red one above at $44,000. So what we can actually do is use this 200 weekly moving average and this golden ratio multiple and actually apply indicators within TradingView if you're a premium Look Into Bitcoin subscriber. So you can actually use these on your own chart and see how price actually reacts to them in real time. So we'll go and have a look at that now. So here, just on the TradingView chart, I've already applied the 200 weekly moving average. And as we can see here, like we discussed on the chart on Look Into Bitcoin, we dipped beneath it, came back above, but are yet to come and retest this level. However, like we said, in every single previous cycle, we did retest this a number of times before actually kicking off the bull cycle. What we can also see as well is, even though we haven't retested this, we're currently at a pretty major resistance level, being the psychological level of $30,000. I'm not sure if you're too much into the technical analysis side of things, but we can see here it acted as support a number of times in the previous bull cycle and then resistance as we dipped beneath it. This usually just means that it's a key area of interest for a lot of traders and investors potentially buy or sell Bitcoin at this level. So it's a very key level, and as we can see, Bitcoin's currently very much trying to break through, as it did a few weeks ago before falling down a little bit again. So we can see we're almost getting this coiling price action. And if we were to see this 200 weekly moving average continue to the upside, to continue its trend like it is doing now, we may see something where Bitcoin coils up even more and comes to a decision point of either breaking to the upside or breaking further down as well. But of course, this is just speculation. What we can do, like we said, is add the golden ratio multiplier as well. And similar to what we said previously, this green line sitting at around $35,000, we can see this actually, if we just add a line here, also creates a very prominent line of support and resistance. Throughout the previous bull cycle, it was an area of resistance, and especially as we came down through the bear cycle, was support before, again, we broke through and became a key level for traders and investors to watch. So these are probably two very key areas between this $30,000 and $35,000 region for Bitcoin, which until we break through, there's probably not too much price action really worth paying considerable attention to. We're probably going to have a lot of chop and sideways price action this year, especially like we said, coming out of the bear market, rallying quite substantially off the price action lows. We may have this rather long transitionary period where Bitcoin isn't too interesting, isn't too exciting, but gives you a great opportunity to stack sats and accumulate Bitcoin potentially at a discount, especially if we were to come back and retest this 200 weekly moving average, which I think would hold up very nicely as support and would be a really key level to really confirm that Bitcoin has moved from a bear cycle into a bull cycle. So just to summarize, after a neutral yet somewhat volatile price action we had for April, Bitcoin is now situated beneath the considerable price resistance of $30,000 all the way up to $35,000. And with the fear and greed index still suggesting traders and investors maybe have a little bit of a greedy sentiment, it may suggest a cool off period is imminent for the Bitcoin price action. Throughout all of Bitcoin's transitionary periods, from bear cycle to bull cycle, we've retested the 200 weekly moving average, which we are still yet to do, so maybe that is a key level to watch. However, like we said, there is always the possibility that we continue the trend to the upside without any sustained retrace. Very similar to what we saw in 2019 when Bitcoin rallied from around $3,500 to $14,000, leaving many people sidelines wishing they bought lower. If you like this video, then please visit lookintobitcoin.com, where you can also consider becoming a site subscriber to gain access to live chats, in-depth newsletters, indicator alerts, private TradingView scripts, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. And let me know in the comments down below and on social media what your thoughts are on the current Bitcoin price action and where you think we could go over the coming weeks and months. I look forward to reading and replying to all of them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.